Okay, guys. Well, we're going to start off like I always do with the top corners of the week. And in first place, Nick and Delilah are not going to like this one, but it's Paulson Adebo of the New Orleans Saints. He rose to the top this week with 4 interceptions, 22 solo tackles, and 5 assists.
Yeah, of course.
Um, yeah, I saw that one and I had to chuckle a little bit. In second place, Janae's going to like this one, and all the other cowboy crazies there are, is Darren Bland. He's also, him and Adebo tied for number one in the league this week with 4 interceptions. Number three is someone we've talked about before. It's Steven Nelson with Houston, and he's there with 3 interceptions. So I have a couple of topics that I'm going to talk about today in my little section, and I'm going to try and make them as succinct as I can. First, we're going to talk about flex games because, as you know, it's going to start getting to the point where the NFL is going to maybe start tinkering with the schedule. So, just to let you, here's the rules that it comes to flex games. Sunday night football can be flexed from weeks 5 to 10, and then from weeks 11 to 17 at the discretion of the NFL. So essentially, Sunday night football really can be moved from week 5 to 17. Monday night football can only be flexed from weeks 12 to 17. And with Sunday night football and Monday night football, they have to announce the change 12 days in advance. And then once you get to week 14, then it has to be announced 6 days in advance. Thursday night football can be flexed from weeks 13 through 17. However, that one, because it's on the NFL network and it's on a different channel, they have to give 28 days advance. That's the reason why a lot of the Thursday night football games are usually not flexed, because that's a pretty far out to be able to do it. All right, so that's the flex rules coming up. Remember, Sunday night football, essentially from here on out, they can flex anytime, any game they want, as long as it's 12 days in advance. Monday night football, 12 to 17, again, 12 days in advance until closer to the end, and then it's 6 days in advance. Sunday night football, weeks 13 through 17, but more than likely not going to happen. Okay, so as my fellow hosts on this show know, I actually put this topic or picked this topic before the Raiders ended up firing Josh McDaniels. So I'm going to have another Raiders topic to talk about. But this one's interesting to me because it is also concerns with somebody who's very prominent in the league, and some people consider him to be the greatest of all time. And a lot of you know Tom Brady has been working with Mark Davis to purchase a minority interest in the Oakland Raiders. Now, that has hit a couple of snags, and not necessarily because they fired Josh McDaniels. It hit a snag before. So, as of October 31st, if his purchase had been approved, he probably would have gone on to the ownership committee to have vote on it. But there's been some problems, so it's probably may not be approved until the next meeting, which I believe is late December or early January is when the next ownership meeting is going to be. Okay, so this is how it works if you're buying a minority interest. Before we talked about if you wanted to buy the team, now we're talking about a minority interest, which in the NFL tends to be a 5-10% interest is what you're buying. So the way that it works is the finance committee is the one who works through the contract and through the idea of what you're going to buy and the numbers on it, et cetera, et cetera. If the finance committee agrees to the terms of the buy, then it'll go to the owners committee. Now, the owners committee, you need 24 of 32 teams to give it a yay to be able to buy a minority interest. Here's the interesting thing. And I'm giving you this information so you know, because this is the really interesting thing. So according to the Forbes NFL team valuations, which was done in October of 2023, the Raiders are worth $6.2 billion. So if you want to buy them, that's what you got to pay Mark Davis. Now, usually, like I said, you buy a minority interest, it's 5 to 10%. I'm going to use the 10% number because it's a lot easier to understand. So if Tom Brady is buying 10% of the Raiders, he needs to come up with $620 million. And I'm not saying he doesn't have the money. He has the money. He could afford this. But what's happening is his agreement with Mark Davis is he's getting a discount on that minority interest. And it's a significant discount if the rumors are true and what they've been talking about. This has been in Business Week and on Forbes and a bunch of different places. There's the numbers they're showing is they think he might be buying an interest in the Raiders for $434 million. That is a 70% discount. This is the issue, the biggest issue with this is that the finance committee, as we know, we talked about before, every time a team gets sold, that valuation feeds into the next time a team is sold. And all of the owners want to make sure that their teams are valued as high as they can be. You sell a minority interest for this. This is what's on the books. If you go to sell, that is going to be the figure, and it can be used to bring your evaluations down. So that's the reason right now it's not been approved, is because of finances, the financial aspect of it. I do think, and I'm going to say with a caveat, I do think it's not that they're never going to approve him being the owner, being a minority owner. They will approve him. It will happen. They just might need to work on the numbers a little bit to make them more normal so that other teams, when they sell, they can know what they can do for those minority interests. So that's where that one's at. There's also a couple of other things. Another issue that's kind of popped up, and I think this is one that some people, it might affect some of the owners, is that Brady is going to have a Fox analyst job next year on Fox News. So if he's a minority owner, even though he's probably doesn't have any voting rights and he can't use, he's going to be given information as an analyst while he's doing his job. So how do you make sure he's not taking that information that he's getting on these various teams and go back? I'm not saying he would. I'm just saying it's a question mark for some people on this. The last one does have to do with the other issue is so if you own part of a team, you cannot be an employee. You cannot be a GM. You cannot be a coach. You can't do any of that. You cannot be an employee and an owner. That's not allowed through the rules. So, head coach got let go. GM got let go. If Brady really wants to own part of the Raiders, and him and Davis may think about maybe bring him in, have him be part of this team, have him be part of the administration. That happens, then he can't own the team. So this is one that's going to be interesting to me to see how it breaks out. And as Abdul said, there is a conflict of interest, yes, in him owning a minority ownership in a team and also being an analyst. So that's another thing you're going to have to work out. That's never happened before, because owners have always been owners and analysts have been analysts, and never the two shall meet. But Brady is one of the greatest that's played the game. So he's going to want to try and do some of these things. So there may be a few rules. So I'm just saying, this is the one that I'm going to keep an eye on in the corner office because I think it's interesting and I want to see how this plays out. So that's my report from the corner.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tina. Always a lot to process there after we finish your segment. So, but we all appreciate the information, I'm sure. So let us, might be, yeah, for sure. I've mentioned it might be a conflict of interest for sure. Because again, you got an analyst contract and they're expecting you to go into the booth, my friend, but now you want to be a minority owner in a football team. So we'll definitely all be keeping
Not
an eye on Mr. Brady.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Tina.
not just that you got to go into the booth. It's that he's being given inside information. He's meeting
Yeah.
with coaches,
Right.
he's meeting with players. He's
Right. Yeah.
being given points to talk about at the game, the pros and the cons,
Right.
and this is what we're looking for over there. That information
Yeah. No, you're
He
right.
owns
It's
the
100%.
team. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that's the bigger issue for me. But from
Yeah.
what I'm reading, it's the financials is the biggest hurdle right now.
It's the
So
biggest hurdle.
they'll
Okay.
work that out. They'll work it out.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
again, like it's just a very interesting thing because like
No,
everybody
sure.
assumed Peyton Manning and John Elway were
Right.
ownership. They weren't. So
Right.
he's the first ex-player that has had the funds to be able to do this. I
Right. To
think
do this.
you're going to see
Exactly.
this going forward a little bit more. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like I
think
said.
they all want more football players kind of want a stake, right? Like I know Aaron Rodgers kind of wanted something like that, and because he was a player,
and that's the
Jets
reason.
were like, the Jets were like, not yet, but
oh no, that would have been an automatic no.
right.
So that's,
so
it would they could not do
no,
that.
but he
Because-
put that out there. So I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think we're going to see more players who want to be owners, not just, hey, I played for these teams. Like, I think you're right. I think we're going to see that. I mean, Brady already has a win as a minority owner to the Vegas Aces, because I don't think people know he's a minority owner of the Las Vegas Aces who won the WNBA championship.
Yeah.
So,
and he's in that with Davis.
Yeah,
they own that together. So
yeah, so
that's why you're seeing these, and that's what happens. You get in with somebody in a group and you pick up these pieces as they go. So
interesting stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, like I said, we'll all be watching that one. That is going to happen in the evolution of contracts. And you're probably right. I mean, it is probably going to happen, and they'll find a way to make it happen because he's Tom Brady. No, I'm just playing, but yeah,
Not
I'm sure
just
they'll
him,
work
though.
all that out.
You're right. You're not wrong.
Yeah.